Well, hey, pre-calc, today we have a pre-do now. We'll get to the do now in a minute. Pretend that you spend the whole entire class period watching YouTube on your Chromebook. You're not paying attention. You got no clue about anything that's going on. All of a sudden, there's a quiz. What? It's a multiple choice question. There's only one question on the quiz. You have no clue. It's 5 options, and you just guess randomly. Number 1, what's the probability you get it right? Give your answer in decimal form, please. You can do whatever you want to get there, but final answer is a decimal. Question 2, what's the probability you get it wrong? Again, in decimal form. You hit pause on the video till you got those numbers. Okay, so for getting it right, 1 out of the 5 options is right. That's 20%, but we want decimal, so 0.2. And question 2, for getting it wrong, 4 out of the 5 options, which would be 80%, but we want the decimal, which is 0.8. Next, the actual do now. So you remember in Mean Girls, the movie, I showed you this clip earlier when Katie says, the limit does not exist, and she wins the whole thing. She's the mathlete state champs. Of course you remember that. Pretend that instead of math, pretend that Katie was in a trivia contest about the fictional kingdom of Gilder, where everything is totally made up, and she knows nothing about Gilder. Nothing. Contest has 20 multiple choice questions. Each question has 5 options. Here's our probabilities that we just got in the pre-do now. We're going to use those probabilities to calculate the expected value of what Katie would expect, number of points for each question. We're going to make one change. We're going to change frequency to probability. I've dropped those probabilities in here for you already. So go ahead, complete the calculation. What is the expected value of points for one question? Hit pause on the video till you got that. Okay. So we're going to multiply straight across to get our products, add straight down the probability column, add straight down the product column, divide 0.2 divided by 1 to get our expected value, 0.2 points per question. Last thing, based on that expected value for one question, what is the expected value of 20 repeats of this multiple choice question? Or how many questions would you expect Katie to get right strictly by guessing? Hit pause on the video till you got your answer written down. All right, so we'll take that expected value multiplied by the 20 questions. 4 is the number we'd expect her to get right. Hey, you remember a long time ago when we talked about Katie taking a 20-question multiple choice pop quiz? We're going to do that too. It's in Canvas. Come back when you are done. Hey, well, welcome back, pre-calc. Today we're going to look at histograms, and our learning target is you'll be able to create a histogram. Okay, short version. A histogram is a type of graph. It looks similar to a bar graph. The one most important difference is bar graphs we use for categories. You see the example there. These examples are countries. All right, a histogram we use for number ranges. So it could be number of questions correct. It could be lots of things. It could be scores. It could be frequencies. Okay, less important difference between a histogram and a bar graph. Bar graphs have gaps between the bars because the categories are in no way related. Histograms do not contain gaps between those number ranges because numbers are sequential. So this example goes, the little example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then 6 is the next number. There should not be a gap between 5 and 6, so all the little bars are touching. There's a bigger example over here with prettier colors. And when you make a histogram, it is up to the graph maker to determine the size of the range. Each of the ranges across the graph has to be the same size. So in this bigger example here is 0 through 3. That'd be 0 is a possible outcome, 1, 2, and 3. So there's 4 outcomes grouped together. These are scores on a fictitious final exam. So a number of questions, so it's 0 questions, 1 question, 2 questions, and 3 questions correct. There's 4 outcomes grouped together. And then all the rest of those have to be the same size group. So 4 questions right, 5 questions right, 6 questions right, 7 questions right. That's another 4 outcomes grouped together. And then the height of the bar represents the frequency. Okay, so a histogram is a graphical representation of frequency. It's a frequency graph. Let's do some interpretation. So once we have a histogram, let's see if we can interpret some things. Based on this histogram, what is the most likely outcome? Well, the most likely outcome is going to be the one that has the highest frequency. And in this case, there's tallest bar. And so if we trace that down to the bottom, that's 4. So these bars on the histogram just represent one possible outcome grouped together. It's always going to be the thing labeled on the left edge of that bar. So that tall bar is 4. 4 is the most likely outcome. Next question is related to that. What's the frequency of students that got 4 questions right? Well, that's the height of that bar, which is 6. 6 students got 4 questions right. And then just another question, just for practice, what's the frequency of students that got 7 questions right? Well, for 7 questions right, we're going to go across here to 7, read up how high is that bar, 1 student. Okay, so some more complicated kinds of questions. In histogram, we don't always, well, any kind of statistics for that matter, we don't always just ask about single outcomes. Sometimes we want to look at a group, such as this question. What's the frequency of students who got at least 5 questions correct in this class? Well, at least 5 implies that we're going to look at more than one possible outcome, more than one bar on this graph. So you could have got 5 questions right, but you also could have got 6 questions or 7 questions or 8 questions or 9 or 10 or 11 or 12 or however many questions there were. You could have got 5 and more. So we're going to add together all of these frequencies. My circle got too big. All of these frequencies that are actually inside my circle. So 5 questions right, that had a frequency of 6 people, that's the height. 6 questions right had a 1 person, that's the frequency. Nobody got 7 questions right. 8 questions, another 1 person, that's the height. And 9 questions also had 1 person. So we're going to add those together, 6 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1, which is a total of 9. If there were responses, if there were bars on the other part of the graph over here at 11 questions, 12 questions, 13 questions, we would add those also, but there's nothing there. So if there's zeros, we could add a bunch of zeros. All right.